The wind off the wolf's wood crept through Winterfell's outer bailey with a wolf's own stealth, nosing beneath doorframes, rattling loose shutters, and mingling with the dim gray light of pre-dawn. The castle breathed in that hush before life returned. Fires banked low, grooms dozing against stable stalls. The occasional clink of chain from the ramparts where the night watch still kept their silent post. Snow melt dripped from the teeth of the battlements, beading like cold sweat upon rough-hewn stone. Dawn would come, the cooks would stir their kettles. Iron would ring on iron in the yard. But for this narrow blinking instant, Winterfell hovered between sleeping and waking. A great beast, unsure if it yet dreamed. Maester Luwin felt that hesitation in his bones as he crossed the deserted yard, robes flapping, lantern held high. Age and the lingering ache of the northern chill stiffened his knees, yet he moved with urgent purpose toward the rookery. A single raven in the night could change the course of men's fortunes or dash them upon the rocks. He had tended the birds long enough to know how thin the line ran between hope and despair. Ned Stark's dark wings had flown south, and darker tidings had flown back. Luwin feared this newest bird carried final confirmation of horrors he dared not voice aloud. A shape detached from the morning gloom by the well. Bran, pale and slight in his carved oak chair, watched Luwin approach with eyes too old for his years. Hodor loomed behind like a gentle shade. "You're up early, Maester," Bran said, voice flat with sleepless worry. "So are you, my prince." The title came with a pang now. Would it mean anything if their lord father fell? I must see to the ravens. Another gust cut between them, snuffing the lantern. Hodor grumbled, hugging Bran's chair by instinct. "I dreamt of father again," Bran murmured. He was in a cold place. Chains made of snow held him, but the snow was burning him like hot iron. He called for me and for Arya, but the wind was too loud. Luwin set a hand upon the boy's shoulder. "Dreams are only dreams. Your father is strong. He will find his way back to us." "Nah, well." Bran gazed past him, toward the godswood where bare weirwood branches clawed the sky. "The trees know he's in danger. I can feel them worrying." Only the hoarse croak of a dawning rook answered. Luwin wanted to speak further comfort, yet his mouth tasted of ink and iron. "Try to rest, squire, or at least break your fast. I'll bring word the moment I know." He turned, then froze. Across the yard by the empty kennels, a figure stood half-shaped by the trembling light. Cloaked in plain brown wool, head bowed beneath a hood, the stranger might have been a beggar, yet her stillness carried a grave nobility that drew the eye. No guardsman had hailed her. No hounds barked. She was simply there. "Hodor," Bran whispered. The gentle giant's brow furrowed. Luwin stepped forward. "Ho, there. Winterfell is closed till first light. Show your face and tell your name." The woman lifted her head. Lamp or no lamp, Luwin saw her then. Saw the pale Stark skin beneath road dust, the long mane of dark hair streaked with frost, and eyes that flashed gray as a new whetted sword. He saw the stubborn chin, so like Lord Eddard's, the proud curve of cheek, remembered only from faded tapestries in the solar. For one half-heartbeat, his worldly maester's mind rejected the image as impossible. The next heartbeat shattered doubt like thin ice. "By the seven," Luwin breathed. He felt suddenly weightless, as though the world had spun sideways. "My lady." The woman's voice was quietly northern, rasped by years of disuse. "Is this still Winterfell?" she asked, almost shy. "I was told I would know it by the smell of hot bread and wolf's blood in the stones." "It is," Bran answered before Luwin could speak, awe turning him small and bright. "You're standing in it." The stranger's gaze fell on the boy, and 1,000 things passed across her face. Pain, wonder, guilt, a fierce protective tenderness. She knelt, gathering Bran's chilled hands between her own. "You must be Brandon. You have father's eyes." Bran's mouth fell open. "Nobody calls me Brandon, but—" "Lyanna," Luwin finished, voice breaking. "Lyanna Stark, lost for 15 years and named dead beneath the Tower of Joy." She rose, holding Bran's fingers like some prized relic. "There was little joy in that tower, Maester. Nor did I die there, though I wanted to." Even as Winterfell reeled, Dawn seeped over the red roofs and narrow winds of King's Landing, turning the city's smell, dung, fish, river rot, into something saltier, sharper, hungry. Atop the highest terrace of the Red Keep's eastern curtain wall, Sansa Stark stood alone, fingers clenched around the stone merlon until her knuckles whitened. Far below, the first trumpets of morning guard change cried across the courtyard. Banners stirred like waking dragons. The gold cloaks made their practiced strut. Somewhere in the belly of that crimson labyrinth, her father awaited judgment, or mercy no one believed would come. Night had given her little rest. She had prayed to maiden and mother, whispered to stranger and crone, and even dared a child's plea to the old gods her septa called savage. Her prayers came back as echoes. The queen ignored her letters. Ser Boros rapped her knuckles when she pressed too close to the council chambers. All paths were closed. And so, Sansa did the only thing left. She watched for miracles. Birdsong reached her ears, sweet as summer wine. A small brown swallow alighted on the parapet beside her and tilted its head. She almost laughed. Some silly part of her trying to see omens in every flit of feather. If a plain swallow could cross oceans, why not a message? Why not a rescue? She stroked one finger across its sleek back. "Fly for me," she whispered. "Find Robb. Find Arya." The bird cheeped and darted off, a slip of quicksilver in the air. Another trumpet blast answered from the tourney grounds, harsher. A hush swept the yard, the hush of sharpened axes waiting to fall. Sansa shut her eyes, but even in darkness she saw her father on the sept steps. Guards on either flank, his gray eyes raised to meet hers in the crowd. "I am Eddard Stark, Lord of Winterfell, and I come before you to confess my treason." The swallow's wing beats faded. She heard only the distant clamor of something ending. In Winterfell's Hall of the Direwolf, fires blazed as though to hold back ghosts. Lyanna stood before the high seat, cloak cast aside, and every face, Sir Roderick's scarred and strong, old Nan's ancient and soft, the Smith Micken's soft, the Smith Micken's sooty, drank in the sight as if it might vanish should they blink. 24 souls had been roused from sleep, but not one complained. Awe swallowed fatigue. So she rode south to a false spring, old Nan whispered, tears streaking wrinkles deep as dry riverbeds. And now the snows bring her home again. Lyanna's smile was the faintest curve, wounds beneath, snows and worse. She touched the hilt of a modest sword at her side. "I have ridden roads unsung by singers, Nan. The years have scoured me, but not my name." Roderick Castle came forward, tempering emotion behind his fierce white whiskers. "We buried a stone cairn in your memory, my lady." Lord Eddard spoke over it himself. "Nanadawani." "So, I have heard." Lyanna regarded the man who had trained her brothers. It was a good lie to keep grief at bay. But lies, even kind ones, can rot the skin if left too long. "Forgive us," the knight said gruffly. "We did not know. I am not here for forgiveness." She turned, searching the crowd until her gaze settled on Bran's chair. "I came to keep a promise." Luwin stood at her other flank. "If your return means what I fear, there will be little time for promises. Tell us all. How did you live? And why come now? Now of all moments." "Nanadimdao." The hall quieted until only the pop of sap in the hearthwood broke the stillness. Lyanna took breath. "I died beneath the Tower of Joy as the realm understands death. But the realm knows little of magic." Her voice rasped on the word like a sword gedge. "A midwife and 2 sorceresses delivered me of my child, whose first cry stole my last strength. Yet where breath failed, blood endured. They bled me, bound me in weirwood sap and water from the Nightfort's well, chanting words older than the first men. I lay in a borderland between living and dying, neither crossing fully. In that twilight, dreams ruled. I saw Ned beside my bed, tears on his face. I saw Robert's warhammer crash through Rhaegar's breastplate. I saw Winterfell's towers broken by dragons. When I woke, the tower had fallen silent. The king's guards were dead. Only a woman in a lemon gown remained, Elia of Dorne's sister. She gave me a name of ashes and a draught to numb the truth. then took my son away. And knives. Even Lewin, stooped over decades of scholarship, could not find his voice at that. A murmur, half horror, half wonder swelled through the hearth hall. My body healed, Lyanna went on. Yet something held me from the north. A debt, perhaps. I wandered Essos in search of what was stolen. The boy with stark eyes and dragon blood. Every road led to shadows, years blurred. But last month, in the free city of Tyrosh, a sellsword spoke of a lad matching the description. Dark hair, violet eyes, riding with a red priest. They sailed west for King's Landing. Her fingers tightened on the hilt, until knuckles whitened. I took the fastest ship. 3 days ago, I reached White Harbor, and learned Ned had been seized for treason. I rode from dawn to dusk across the King's Road. Horses died beneath me. Last night, toward the third moonrise, the snow began to fall, light as maiden's down. Winter is coming, they say. I felt it driving me onward. Named Irwell. The fire snapped. Bran's voice, small but clear, cut the silence. If father is set to die, we have to stop it. Lyanna knelt beside him. You have your uncle's courage. He's my father, not uncle. Her eyes shimmered. Yes. Of course. Micken slammed a fist against his breastplate. We raise the banners then. Call every vassal house. Flint, Karstark, Mormont. March south like the old days. Roderick shook his head. We gather men, and we will lose them. The king sits the Iron Throne, his armies mass in the south. We would ride into a butcher's yard. The maester speaks sense, Lewin said wearily. We need cunning, not fury. Lyanna straightened. We need both. She turned to the hearth, where Lord Rickard's massive iron greatsword, ancestral steel burned black, hung across wolf pelts. She took its weight in her hands with reverence. My brother lives, breathing or no. I will not see another Stark head on a pike. Nay. Bran lifted his chin. Take me with you. Impossible, Lewin protested. Bran, Lyanna said gently. Your father vowed to protect his children. He would wish you safe in the north. The boy's eyes flashed stubborn tears. If I'm supposed to be Prince of Winterfell, let me act it. Roderick cleared his throat. A message then. We cannot outpace ravens to the capital, but we may outpace expectation. A small party, mounted light, riding the King's Road under cover of... Who leads it? The Lord's bannermen will not gather fast enough. Lyanna looked across them all. I lead, she said simply. I rode the King's Road once as Winter's child. I will do so again. Sir Roderick, pick 5 riders sworn to secrecy. Maester, draft letters under my hand to houses who still honor the old blood. We ride before midday. Old Nan trembled. Girl, you were the spring lady of Winterfell. Now I am Winter returned. Lyanna brushed shaggy hair from Nan's cheek. Fear not. I have walked through stranger lands than any Southron castle. Her gaze raked the banners overhead. Grey direwolf rampant on white, but the cloth seemed faded beside her resolve. The wolf dreams of sunlit fields, but the she-wolf wakes when pups cry. The Red Keep's high sept rang hollow when Sansa entered. Pale light filtered through colored glass onto marble columns, throwing fractured rainbows across the floor. She had sneaked away from her septa, her guards, even Sir Meryn's watchful eye, careful as a mouse slipping beneath a cat's shadow. What did it matter if they found her here? The queen had used her for a songbird. No song could help father now. So she chose silence and stone. Before the altar to the Seven she knelt, skirts rustling, hair brushing the trailing hem of her cloak. The stranger's face gazed down, blank, implacable. Beside the mother's warm smile, she folded her hands, but words failed. All the prayers she knew from childhood melted into one long cry. Please let him live. Footsteps echoed. She stiffened, expecting a Lannister guard. Instead, Lord Petyr Baelish stepped from behind a column, soft as smoke in Dove gray silk. His eyes glittered with amused surprise. Lady Sansa, he murmured, bowing just enough. The dawn finds you pious. She rose, cheeks pink. I had need to pray. Your devotion does you credit. He smiled, but the smile never reached his eyes. Alas, the gods can be capricious. Better to marry prayer with prudence. She swallowed. What prudence can help? They mean to kill him. Littlefinger's brows lifted in innocent sorrow. I fear the queen's mind is set. Yet minds may be unset by artful hands if one knows where to press. Hope flickered. Tiny, dangerous. Can you help him? A question of price, my lady. Your father's honor is burdensome to certain parties. If he were to confess certain false deeds, name accomplices, then perhaps leniency might follow. A life spared, though not unchained. Sansa's nails dug crescents into her palms. He would never lie. He is a Stark. That is precisely the trouble. His gaze traveled the rainbow shafts dancing across her hair. The realm changes, sweet girl. Old oaths bind like fetters. Families break like dry branches in a storm. Better to bend and shatter. Nah. I will talk to him, she said, voice trembling. Do that. You are young, but hearts grown cold cannot resist pure flame. He bowed again and glided away. The 7 statues watched in wordless judgment. Sansa closed her eyes, tasting bile. The price of rescue, false confession, was more than dishonor. It was an execution of truth itself. Yet, if father lived, even in chains, was that not worth any lie? Above, the stranger's faceless visage offered neither rebuke nor comfort. Snow stung Lyanna's cheeks as she urged her dun mare through the Wintertown gate. Behind her, Sir Roderick led his chosen 5, young warriors handpicked for loyalty. Jory Castle's cousin Harwin, Jonella, a tall spearwoman from Deepwood Motte. Pate the Smith squire, Dorset, whose laugh usually came quick but now sat swallowed, and Quile, a lean archer scarcely older than Arya. They wore plain leathers over mail, cloaks without sigil, each carrying enough provisions for a fortnight's hard ride. 2 spare horses trotted behind, bound head to tail. The morning road lay empty. Clods of half-frozen mud splitting under hoof. Gray sky pressed low, as if the clouds themselves meant to crowd the earth. A wind out of the north whistled through pine tops lining the King's Road, bearing scents of snow, sap, and something else. Like distant storms, Lyanna tasted metal on her tongue, and remembered the scent of dried blood on white rose petals. She reined in at the rise beyond the charity mill. Winterfell's towers peeked behind her, familiar yet far. Bran sat high on the rampart walkway, waving a striped flag the garrison used to signal distant hunters. She returned his salute with raised fist. Roderick drew abreast. If we push the horses to dusk, we reach the last river crossing by nightfall, and risk laming 3 mounts, she said. We keep stamina for the long run. The road is not our only enemy. She gestured to the black tree line. Something stirs in the woods. Roderick's hand fell to his sword. Wildlings? Worse perhaps, but they will not hinder us yet. Jonella sniffed the air. Feels like snow will break heavy come sundown. Lyanna smiled mirthlessly. Let it. Winter is an ally to those who know her ways. They rode on. Lyanna's mind wandered miles ahead, to King's Landing's crowded alleys, to the Red Keep's cold dungeons, to Ned Stark waiting for a reprieve only the Queen could grant. He would ask about their son if she reached him. Ask if the boy lived, what name he bore. She had no answer, only promise of pursuit. The raw wound of that empty cradle gnawed at her still. Rhaegar's legacy, Robert's rage, her own flight. Each thread led to that missing child, as though fate itself refused closure, until mother and son were reunited. Yet before that reunion, she must save her brother. She pictured riding into the capital, cloak thrown back, north wind snapping at her hair, declaring herself before the throne room throng. Let Robert see the lover he mourned returned. Let guilt choke him when he realized his hubris had placed Ned on the block. Could that spectacle unseat the Lannister hold? Or would Cersei strike before the king could waver? Too many shards of possibility gleamed in her thoughts, sharp enough to cut. A scream broke from the tree line. The riders hauled up, weapons rasping free as 4 shapes burst upon the road, ragged men in piecemeal leather, axes upraised. Bandits. Hunger shone in fever eyes. Desperation made them fearless. "Hold!" Roderick bellowed, driving his horse between Lyanna and the attackers. The foremost bandit swung an axe at Roderick's shield. Steel rang, sparking. Janella's spear darted through the man's throat. He dug a gargled croak, dropped. Harwin loosed an arrow into another's knee, sending him sprawling. The last two hesitated. Then Lyanna was among them, sword a flash of winter sunlight. She parried one clumsy stroke, pivoted beneath the other's guard, hamstringed him, and flicked her blade across his brow in one fluid flourish. He collapsed, blood misting. Silence settled, quick and abrupt. A snowflake drifted past Lyanna's vision, landing on the dead man's cheek. Pate dismounted to recover arrows. "Reavers from the Blue Fork keep spilling east," he muttered. Whole families fled the fighting, turned outlaw. Lyanna wiped her blade on a dead man's cloak. "Mercy is a garden. It must be tended, or weeds choke the wheat." These men were weeds. Roderick eyed her sidelong. "You dance like the Dornish. Ned never said you took a water dancer for teacher." "I took many teachers." She slid her sword home. "Heron of roses with thorns to spare." They remounted. Snow thickened, swirling around hooves, erasing tracks. Winter's breath quickened. The Tower of the Hand stood gaunt against morning sun. In its highest cell, Eddard Stark lay on a straw pallet. His left leg throbbed where the splinter of blade had run deep. Fever made the walls breathe. Sweat cooled on his brow, smelling of sickness and damp wool. Yet above pain circled a sharper agony. The knowledge that his honor lay traded like market grain, his children scattered, his wife across the riverlands, his own head priced by lions. He rolled onto one elbow, grimacing. Through narrow bars he glimpsed a sliver of sky, blue as the eyes of his sister on the day of her betrothal tourney. Lyanna. Her laughter once filled this city, now only ravens remembered. He had built cairns of promises upon her tomb. The weight of those unmet vows bowed him lower than chains. Footsteps outside. The door creaked open, and a torch guttered, revealing Varys robed in lavender silk. "My Lord Hand," the eunuch cooed. "I trust the blankets keep you warm." "No blanket can warm treason," Ned rasped. Varys sked. "We bandy that word too loosely. The realm shifts. To keep balance, one must move with it." "Your tongues wag like dogs," Ned muttered. Fever blurred his vision. "Speak plain." "Plainly, Queen Cersei means to see your head on spikes. Lord Stannis would applaud, Renly might dance, yet there is one who does not desire your death, one with power enough to outweigh the Queen. Robert is dead." "Indeed. His Grace's memory lingers only in stained goblets and bawdy limericks. No, I speak of another king." Ned frowned. "Joffrey. The boy is a puppet. Not him. A different crown, unseen but dawning. A crown that may yet tilt night into day." Varys's dark eyes gleamed. "Do you know what becomes of seeds planted in secret? They grow roots." Ned fought to steady his breathing. "If cryptic words could free me, I'd already stride free." Varys drew a folded parchment from his sleeve and placed it on the straw. "The ink here is not yet dry. It bears a sigil long thought extinguished. Read it when fever loosens. You may find counsel in ghosts." He retreated. The door closed. Ned stared at the parchment. A sigil long thought extinguished. His heart stumbled. He pictured a gray direwolf, then a blue rose crowned with winter frost. With a shaking hand he reached for the letter. Night settled early over the north. In White Knife Vale, Lyanna's party found shelter beneath a rocky overhang, shielded from swirling snow. They built a cautious fire and heated broth. Fatigue hung heavy, but no one spoke of turning back. Kyle rubbed his bowstring dry beside the flames. "South as we ride, the road only grows more crowded. Kings and claimants, all scraping steel. If word of River Run's banners is true, half of Westeros already marches to war." "Rar." Roderick sipped from a tin cup. "We march first for a prison cell." The war can wait. Jonella poked embers. Wars never wait. They only spread. Lyanna ate in silence, gaze fixed on sparks spiraling up to vanish. She remembered nights in the Kingswood long ago, Rhaegar's harp under moonlight. Verses of sad Valyrian songs, how she had dreamed then of adventure, of chivalry untainted by court's rot. She had been girl enough to believe in heroes. The dream had died at the tower's feet, drowned in screams and childbirth blood and vanished infants. Now only purpose remained. Harwin passed her the wineskin. "My lady, you should sleep. Roderick and I will take first watch." "Thank you." She tilted the skin, let sour grape torment her tongue. Sleep felt distant as summer. Still, she pulled cloak against the rock wall. Closed eyes, listened to wind moan over stone. In that uneasy half-rest visions returned. A babe in swaddling cloth. A Targaryen red star sewn at the breast. Ned's voice whispering, "Promise me, sister." A weirwood's pale roots winding round a black sword. And over all a great roar of wings. She jerked awake to hushed shouts, Roderick calling quietly, Kyle already stringing bow. Snow drifted thicker, stifling the sound. But under the storm's hush, hoofbeats thudded. 7 riders emerged from the white, torches flicking ghost garage. Cloaks patterned in dun and serret leather. No heraldry. Smugglers perhaps, or worse. Roderick rose, sword bare. "Who comes?" A deep voice answered, "Friends of the gold you sit on." Lyanna stepped forward, eyes narrowed. "There is no gold, unless you mean honor." She brushed cloak aside to show Rickard's greatsword strapped across her back. "I pay thieves with steel." The speaker laughed, dismounting. Scarred face, missing ear. Steel buys well in these lean times. His men fanned, blades tapping shields. So, it would be blood. Lyanna pulled her sword free. Snow kissed the darkened blade. Around her, Roderick's band braced. The first outlaw lunged. She parried, riposted, severed tendon. Jonella's spear skewered another. Harwin's bow thrummed. Dorset ducked a mace blow, hamstrung the wielder. Snow churned red, torches toppled, hissed upon drifts. In the flicker, Lyanna met the scarred leader's gaze. Recognition flared. The smiling snake, a sellsword she'd seen in Myr, deserter of the Golden Company. He saw her too, hesitated. "Lyanna Stark," he breathed. Wonder and fear mingling. "The dead wolf." "That wolf yet bites," she replied, driving her pommel into his temple. He staggered. Steel sheared his gut. Warmth sprayed across her cheek, steaming in winter air. When silence fell, only snapping flames and ragged breathing remained. 5 corpses bled into snow. 2 survivors fled into darkness. Roderick surveyed the carnage. So much for secrecy. Lyanna wiped her sword. Dead men carry few tales. Yet those 2 may. We ride at first light before their tongues reach a lord. Harwin knelt, searching bodies. He held up a broken wax seal, direwolf imprint. They had this. Stolen courier's pouch. Lyanna took the scrap. The sigil belonged to her house, but not alone. The seal's border bore thorn motifs she had seen only once, on a letter Ned sent from King's Landing mere weeks past. Her pulse quickened. Inside the pouch lay a parchment, torn but legible in places. "King's mercy, confess my crimes. Joffrey Baratheon, life spared, wall." Ned's handwriting. He had written north, seeking counsel, or farewell. She closed fists around the parchment until edges cut. The wall? Exile in black would save his life, but chain him to icy oblivion. Yet alive was alive. She breathed. Roderick studied her. "What word?" "Father means to confess," she said quietly. "They'll send him to the Night's Watch if true. A gallows turned to mercy. Thank the gods. Thank them when he stands free at his own hearth." She looked east where sky paled. "Ride harder tomorrow. Blood has scented our trail." Deep in the Red Keep's dank storerooms, Arya Stark crouched behind a pyramid of dusty amphorae. Rats scuttled along rafters, startled by a candle's wobbling light. Across the chamber, two velvet-cloaked men conferred in low voices. Arya had slipped down a servant's stair chasing rumors of secret passageways. Instead, she found rumors given flesh. Guards bearing the Lannister crimson drank wine and spoke too clearly. "Execution's set for the morrow," said one, scratching his pock-scarred cheek. "Boy King wants heads to roll at dawn." "The hand first," grunted his fellow. "Then the daughters. A lion's feast." Arya bit her tongue so hard she tasted copper. Sansa was still prisoner in Maegor's holdfast. Sweet, stupid Sansa who prayed to the Seven and wrote pretty letters. If Joffrey decided to kill them both. The Poxcar Star sneered. "Queen's orders. King's whim. But the Queen won't stop him. The imps fled, the Kingslayers at River Run, and Lord Tywin marches. Nothing left to check the cub." Arya clutched Needle's hilt beneath her tunic. Panic roared, yet alongside rose a burning clarity. Sansa must be warned. Father must be freed. She ran options like water dancers' drills. Step left, feint low, strike true. She could creep through the tunnels Varys used, steal into the dungeons, cut chains. She could find Yoren of the Night's Watch, beg him to smuggle father out in a cart. Could she? She was only a girl, but girls could be wolves. One guard uncorked an amphora, sniffed. Rotten. Old Dornish. Smells like peaches turned sour. Arya slipped backward, hugging shadows. Breath shallow. The guards argued about better vintage. Their voices receded. She fled up the stair, candle doused. Her mind raced, forging plan from terror. Tomorrow dawn, they would kill them at dawn. Time was a blade on her throat. In the winding corridor she paused before a narrow shutter slit. Night peeled away beyond, stars prickling above the city. A wind off Blackwater Bay carried salt and the cries of gulls. She thought of Winterfell. Warm kitchens, hot bread, Robb's laughter. Home felt like another life. She pressed forehead to cool stone. Not today, she swore. Not this dawn. Lyanna's party reached the Trident on the fourth day. Hooves sinking in sodden riverbank. Snow gave way to sleet as southern warmth clashed skyward with northern chill, turning the air into needles that stung faces raw. Glints of sun pierced clouds, lighting waters restless with memory. Here Rhaegar had fallen, rubies scattering like blood. Lyanna stared at the broad current, felt ghosts swirl. A harp's chord drifting over reeds. Robert's shout of victory, her own cries on a bed of blood. Roderick guided his mount near. We ford at the shallows upriver. Cross by night, miss the toll keepers. She nodded, but her gaze locked on the river as though expecting it to speak. "Do you know what he told me, Roderick?" "Rhaegar, that he loved the Song of Winter Roses because they bloom in defiance of seasons. He believed." Her voice broke. Believe is the cruelest verb. Roderick shifted awkwardly. "Love blinds wiser folk than princes. Let dead princes lie." She turned away, ashamed of tears unshed. When rubies fall in water they sink, yet the river flows on. We will follow it south to justice. Thunder rumbled in the distance. She smelt rain beyond the sleet, heavy as summer storms. The river carried so many stories. She wondered what tale her arrival would write upon its banks this time. Dawn brushed the red keep and pale. Rose the hour Sansa's guard, ushered her before Queen Cersei. The queen reclined in a cushioned window seat, robe of forest green trailing to marble like spilled wine. Beside her, Prince Tommen played with a wooden lion. Birdsong floated through open panes. "Sansa," Cersei said, voice almost gentle. "You have asked to speak on your father's behalf. I listen." Sansa knelt. "Your Grace, I beg mercy for Lord Eddard. He meant no harm to I mean, King Joffrey. He was misled." Cersei sighed, eyes cool as jade. "Your father conspired with my enemies. Treason, sweet girl, yields but one fruit." "He will confess," Sansa blurted. "He will say whatever is required." "Will he?" Cersei studied her nails. "Men of iron break hardest." Sansa swallowed tears. "Spare him, and I will obey every command." I will marry your son gladly. I will give him sons." The queen's sharp gaze flicked up, weighing. "You would trade freedom for your father's life?" "Yes. And if the king demands more blood, would you still call him sweet?" Sansa faltered. "Hey, he acts rashly. But with your counsel, enough." Cersei closed her eyes a moment, as though listening to distant thunder. When she opened them, resolve shone. "Write to your brother Robb at River Run. Tell him to lay down arms. If he bends the knee, if the North yields, your father may live the rest of his days on the wall. Fail, and I cannot promise even a clean end." Sansa's breath caught. She was being mated into a raven, carrying knives and ink. Robb would never yield. But if he didn't? She imagined father's head rolling, eyes staring dumb and empty. She nodded numbly. Cersei smiled. "Good girl. Words can slay dragons as sharp as any spear." Bent her meter. In the dungeons, Ned traced the letter's sigil, wolf crowned by winter rose, and felt a pulse of impossible hope. His fevered dream of Lyanna's voice singing him awake returned with new clarity, as though the parchment summoned her spirit. He unfolded the page with trembling hands. "Brother, do not bargain your honor for your life. I ride to you swift as the northern wind. I am not the girl who hid beneath the Tower of Joy. I am Winter returned, bearing our father's sword. Hold fast, Lyanna." At first he thought the fever conjured it, but the writing was bold, unlovely. A hand he remembered thrashing against quills in the maester's tower years ago. Tears blurred his vision. Lyanna alive. If the dead could awaken, what else might prove untrue? He sat back, laughter escaping rough and raw. A guard glanced in, puzzled, but Ned clutched the letter to chest, letting laughter turn to sobbing joy. "Hold fast," she said. He would. Even if dawn came clothed for execution, he would stand unbroken. For if his sister yet breathed, then promises could still be kept. Fifth night on the King's Road. Rain hammered the world. Lyanna's party found shelter in the ruins of an old watchtower overlooking mile-marker stones carved by Targaryen masons. 2 centuries passed. They dragged their horses beneath sagging arches, coaxed a smoky fire. Yet, sleep eluded every set of eyes. Lightning split clouds, illuminating stone scars. Harwin peered outward. Someone approaches. Lyanna moved to the arch. Rain blurred shapes galloping hard. 4 riders cloaked in oilskin, lantern bobbing. She tensed. The lead rider hailed. "Under the king's peace." Roderick cursed. "Which king?" The answer came in flutter of banner. A flayed man, pink and red. "Bolton." Lyanna's lip curled. "No peace from leeches." The Bolton men dismounted. "We seek Lady Stark," the chief said. "Lord Ramsay bids her bend knee." Roderick bristled. "This tower is claimed by Winterfell's blood. Show courtesy or ride on." "Winterfell's blood rots in cells," the Bolton said. Lyanna stepped out into rain. "I am the blood. Speak." They stared, first at her, then at the sword on her hip. Recognition shadowed them. "Our lord hears rumors of a she-wolf heading south," the spokesman said. "If the tale is true, he offers alliance. The flayed man stands with the direwolf against lions." Lyanna's laugh was low thunder. "The flayed man stands with none but his own knives. Tell Ramsay Snow he may keep his flensing. The North remembers every scream." The Bolton's eyes hardened. "Then you ride to doom." "Perhaps. But I ride free." She drew Rickard's sword. Its dark edge glinted with rainwater. "Leave now and carry word that Winterfell's lady rises. The Red King's bastards will find no comfort beneath her howl." They left, spines stiff, insults swallowed by storm. When hoofbeats faded, Roderick exhaled. "Bolton's sniffing power shifts this wide from Dreadfort bodes ill." "Bolton's smell only carrion," Lyanna said. "We give them none." Within the ruin the fire sputtered. The riders huddled close, the night thick with fear and rain. Yet Lyanna felt a strange calm settle. Each confrontation clarified her path. South and south until the king's own courtyard. There, on the eve of Headsman's sword, she would unleash truth like northern winter. Merciless, undeniable, absolute. Far below in Flea Bottom, Arya crept along a slimy slick culvert, clutching needle. She had found Yoren, the black brother with greasy beard and sad brown eyes, outside the Baelor's Sept. He agreed to spirit her from the city at first light. But he could take only one. No chance for Sansa, not yet. And so Arya hunted paths alone. Her boots squelched in muck, sewer stench clogged throat, but danger smelled like copper and fear. She knew its reek now. She paused at an iron grate, hearing voices overhead, gold cloaks boasting about Dawn's spectacle. The wolf's head will bounce, they say. Always thought Stark's too stiff to bounce. Laughter followed. Arya felt the old rage, Syrio Forel's voice. Fear cuts deeper than swords. She would not freeze. Tomorrow, she would find Father, or kill those who stopped her trying. Either way, she would not watch as a lamb at slaughter. She pressed forward, seeking the hidden postern gate Yoren described. Above, the Red Keep loomed, iron zigzagging against storm clouds. Dawn crept nearer. In the watchtower ruin, Lyanna dreamed of the crypts beneath Winterfell. She walked torchlit halls, past statues of old kings. Brandon the Builder, Torrhen Stark, Lyanna's own mother kneeling with a carved direwolf at her feet. The torches guttered, and a shape moved beyond the last alcove. Tall, cloaked in shifting shadow, carrying a sword of pale fire. She followed. The figure knelt at Rickard Stark's tomb and spoke without turning. "Promise me, sister." "I did," she whispered. "You broke it. I seek our nephew. And our brother. I will save him." The hood lifted. Instead of Ned, a young man's face stared. Gray eyes ringed by violet, black hair tousled, a faint scar over brow. "Save him, mother," he said. She woke, heart drumming. Rain had stopped. Dawn's earliest blue filtered through a jagged break in the tower, painting the fire's dying coals. Lyanna rose, blood singing. Roderick woke too. "Riders?" "None," she said. But a storm of another kind gathered. She felt its wind under her ribs. "We must ride now. Leave packs. Only speed." Roderick nodded, rousing others. They stamped out coals. Saddled in silence. And by first full light they were on the road again. Hooves sending up sprays of pearl-gray mud. South lay the Neck, Moat Caelan's crumbling towers. And beyond, the realm of lions. Lyanna led, cloak fanning behind like a dire wolf's tail. She carried Winter's promise on her shoulder and a brother's letter pressed to her breast. Each clop of hoofbeats sounded a vow. Hold fast. Hold fast. Hold fast. And the road ran on, turning, narrowing, dipping between hills. Behind them, snowflakes fell unnoticed, soft as memories, covering the trail. Beneath the Red Keep's battlements, a headsman whetted his sword against Dawn's red bleeds. Crows gathered upon chimney tops, black beads of prophecy. Far across the city, church bells tolled. The first note hung, waiting, as though the day itself tarried for one last heartbeat. In that fragile pause, wolves stirred. Some in shackles, some astride horses, some hidden in shadowed sewer hearts. All heard the bell. All felt the hour quicken. And far up the King's Road, where spring had once shattered winter's coils, a lone flower pushed through frost. Blue as memory, edged in white. It trembled, as if sensing footsteps drawing near. Kano. Snowmelt dribbled from the vaulted ceiling of the ruined watchtower, as Lyanna Stark guided her horse down the winding, half-collapsed stair that led from the upper chamber. All around her, the stones sweated with dawn, each droplet catching the pale light and glittering like a shard of ice-born glass. She moved softly, mindful of sleepers, though in truth none of her company slept. Harwin polished the dew from his bow, Dorset counted and recounted crossbow bolts in nervous silence, and Jonella paced, spear butt tapping the flagstones in a cadence only she understood. Roderick Castle alone sat still, gauntleted hands folded, eyes half closed in a veteran semblance of repose. A hush like an impatient inhale blanketed the tower. Outside the air had turned damp, the last of the sleet replaced by mist that slithered along the King's Road in pale ribbons. The horses stamped and flicked their manes, bridles jingling in restlessness. Beasts sensed omens men could not name. When Lyanna reached the bottom of the stair, she paused beneath a half-fallen archway and listened. No wind, no birds, no distant clatter of cartwheels. Only a damp stillness, as though the realm itself awaited verdict. She slipped Rickard Stark's greatsword free of its scabbard and laid the dark blade across her knees. For a time she simply stared at it, watching dawn broaden across the steel, until it seemed to swallow the very hue of the sword's shadowy metal, turning night black into cold gray day. Then she rose. "We ride," she said, voice soft but absolute. Roderick's lids snapped open. Harwin and Janella straightened. Dorset muttered a silent prayer to the old gods, or perhaps to any power that would listen. Kyle spat against the hearth ashes, strung his bow, and set an arrow to the string, though no target waited. They broke fast as they readied. Hard oat cake softened in hot water, dried apples, slivers of smoked boar that tasted of resin and pine. Janella cut the last of their cheese rations into thin wedges and passed them down the line. Pate the smith's squire saved his for Bran Stark, tucking it into his satchel alongside a child's carved direwolf he had whittled while standing watch. No one spoke of death, yet every glance toward the sky, toward the south, toward the edge of each other's cloaks, spoke the word without breath. At the ruined gateway where moss overgrew broken portcullis teeth, Lyanna halted her company and surveyed the road. Mist draped the world, but beyond its veil she could sense movement. Armies stirring, ravens lifting, hearts quickening. Far south a bell tolled once, muffled by distance. She imagined its echo reaching the Red Keep, mingling with iron chimes, summoning prisoners to judgment. Roderick rode up beside her. The old knight's face was carved from granite, but the lines about his mouth trembled. "We are still 2 hard days from the neck if the horses hold. From there to the Twins another day. Barring delay, King's Landing stands a fortnight's march beyond." "We have 1 week," Lyanna replied. 7 days. Less, if rumor outruns us. Roderick grimaced. "Rumor always runs faster than horses." Lyanna turned her horse south and nudged it into a walk. The others fell in behind, hooves slapping wet stone as they crossed beneath the shattered portcullis. When the last rider passed under, a single drop of condensed water fell from the arch's jagged edge. It struck the flagstones with a tiny crystalline note, like the highest string of a harp, loosely plucked. Lyanna never heard it. The sound lingered behind her, lost in the mist. They rode through that mist most of the morning, scarcely speaking, each mind busy with its own tight skein of fears. Lyanna's thoughts twisted between past and future, stitching memories to possibilities. She remembered dancing the lance at Harrenhal in her boy's leathers, while Brandon bellowed red-faced from the sidelines. And she remembered Rhaegar's music echoing among the reeds of the lake. Those notes still haunted her dreams, sweet as wine, bitter as nightshade. She remembered Robert's hand, huge, warm, gripping hers as he vowed to win her a crown. And she remembered blood steaming off Robert's shoulder the morning after his victory at the Trident. Most of all, she remembered Ned's face the day she begged a promise of him. A face drawn tight with horror at what he saw, and tighter still with resolve to shield that horror from the world. "Hold fast," she silently repeated, the words Ned had borrowed back from her letter. "Hold fast, hold fast." By noon the mist burned away, revealing a cold sun like a pale coin sunk in tarnished silver. The King's Road unspooled before them in long, muddy lines, but the land itself changed. Here, the north yielded to the fringes of the neck. The trees thinned, trading dark pines for gray chestnut and wiry alder, and the earth grew soft underfoot, pocked by standing pools where green water sloshed when the horses splashed through. Midges rose in swarms despite the chill. Every mile stank, faintly, of rot. They saw no travelers, yet sign of recent passage littered the verge. Broken cartwheels, a scattering of grain spilled like yellow beads across the mud. Hoofprints gaped by weighted wagons. Once Harwin dismounted to study a patch of churned ground that stank of blood and horse sweat. He found a bit of mail torn away, its links twisted by sudden force. Lyanna had no need to ask what scene the tracks described: a flight turned ambush, or a battle splintered in retreat. Either way, the road carried tidings of war ahead. Past noon, Kyle's sharp ears caught thunder behind them. They wheeled to see a black wagon drawn by 4 plow horses, the driver flogging them hard. A broken shaft dragged behind, scraping sparks from stones. The wagon's canvas cover snapped in the wind, revealing cages stacked within, wooden bars battered and split. Even from 50 paces, Lyanna smelled the stench of rotting straw and unwashed flesh. They let it pass, melting into the reeds until the wagon clattered by. Only when its rattle dwindled did Janella break the hush. Stormland slavers? Roderick shook his head. Too far north for Kingsland or slavers. Too well horsed for common thieves? Lyanna's gaze lingered on the fresh blood still tacky along one cage of plank. Prisoners, she whispered. Someone moves prisoners south. Perhaps riverlords taken at River Run. Perhaps free folk seized by northern lords, looking to appease the king. She touched the pouch at her belt, feeling Ned's partial letter inside. Every road tightens toward one noose. She turned and spurred her horse. This time no one waited to follow. They made camp that night upon a low hummock that jutted above the boot-sucking bogs of the neck. The ground there grew sparse with grass, the soil packed hard by north winds. It gave a sense of solidness in a land otherwise given to shifting wetlands. Yet as Lyanna paced the perimeter, she felt the hummock's heart pulse beneath her boots, as though even the hard ground might someday slough away, sucked back into the swamp that birthed it. The others worked in tense silence. Roderick staked the horses where tufts of stiff grass could feed them. Harwin gathered deadfall wood. Janella filled each water skin from a brackish pool, then tossed a shred of charcoal into every bag to leach the taste. Dorset rummaged through supplies and found 3 onions starting to rot, muttering curses under his breath. Kyle crouched on the hummock's far edge, arrow nocked, scanning the twilit line where reeds swayed like pale dancers. When the small cookfire finally flared, hissing from wet bark, they sat with their bowls of onion and oat broth and tried not to think of the morrow. And it was in that sliver of hush, beneath stars winking through cloud gaps, that the drums began. Soft at first, a thudding, hollow, rhythmic, not thunder. There were no clouds massing overhead, and the air lay breathless. The sound came from the south, carried on faint breeze, rolling like distant surf across low-lying fog. Lyanna lifted her head. Roderick set his bowl aside, eyes narrowing. "Drums," he said. "A war column." Harwin guessed. "Too slow for cavalry, too steady for wagon train." "Bolton?" Dorset whispered. "Bolton's men beat flayed skin war drums," Janella snapped. "That is no leech rhythm." Lyanna rose. "Light scouts. Kyle with me?" They left the hummock and slid ghost quiet through the reeds. Night lent cover, the bog's wet hush swallowing their steps. Lyanna followed the rhythm. Dum-dum-dum. A pulse that quickened with each breath like a second heartbeat inside her skull. Soon she glimpsed orange flicker beyond a screen of towering cattails. Kyle crawled ahead and parted the stems with 2 fingers, revealing a waterlogged clearing where a narrow causeway of crude logs snaked across the swamp. Torches bracketed a low bridge spanning a black channel, and across that bridge marched a column of perhaps 100 men. Lyanna studied them. Their cloaks bore no sigils, only mud and fraying cloth. Yet their shields were near identical. Round, rimmed in raw iron, painted a dull mustard yellow. Daggers and short spears bristled. Most wore leather jerkins, but a handful sported mismatched mail collars. At the column's head plodded 2 massive oxen, yoked to a wagon bearing a brass-rimmed field drum. A boy no older than 16 beat the drum with mallets as thick as broom handles. 4 strokes, then pause. 4 strokes, then pause. It was the slow march of infantry, hardened by long miles and discipline. They marched north, Kyle breathed. Away from King's Landing. Lyanna frowned. Or they looped south along secret causeways. Hard to say in the neck. She examined the men again. Their faces, lamplit when they passed each torch, were grim and wind-stung. 1 in 10 wore iron shackles, dangling broken from a wrist or ankle, as though freed from prison yet unwilling to shed the chains. And on several browns and grays of their torn leather she spied faint traces of paint, yellow lightning bolts, partly scraped away. Stormlanders. That explained the yellow shields, the lightning symbol once emblazoned on many. But what were they doing this far north, and moving in disciplined column under cover of night? Edric Storm's men? No. Too early, too far. Whatever their loyalties, they trod the King's Road without heraldry, perhaps seeking to pass unseen through a realm clotted with banners. Lyanna waited until the last file disappeared down the far end of the causeway. Then she slowly released her breath. They returned to camp. Roderick gouged her eyes before she spoke. "Stormland foot," she said. "Bare shields. 100, marching north. Rebel knights," he guessed. Or Selzward's in Robert's memory, come to free his friend, or to avenge him. Harwin looked skyward. Either way, the marsh folk will know. Crenogmen spy every fly that lands on a lily pad. Our presence is not secret any longer. 90. Lyanna stared into the fire. It was never secret. It was only unannounced. They kept double watches that night. Even sleep, when it did come, arrived in thin shimmering films, tearing at every snap of twig. Lyanna dozed beneath her cloak, and dreamed of crossing a courtyard filled with red leaves falling like flour. She heard the sound of a sword sliding from sheath, and she turned to see a shape cloaked in shadow kneeling before a weirwood throne. The shadow's head bowed. Its hand stretched forth, presenting Ned Stark's severed head resting in its palms. She woke shivering in pre-dawn chill. A thin mist coiled above the bog. Dew flecked her lashes. Harwin crouched by the dead fire, arrow notched, eyes scanning the brightening gloom. When she stirred, he nodded, pointing toward south. A black bird, crow or raven, sat on a rotten log, feathers dripping. It cawed once, sharp as ripping cloth, then lifted and flew northward along the road. Lyanna took that as omen enough. They broke camp at once. They reached the causeway by mid-morning, but the Stormland column had vanished. Only footprints half-flooded remained. Where the logs dipped beneath water, they saw oily trails, scum churned by heavy wagons. Once Roderick found a broken spear washed against island reeds. He wrenched it free and tossed it aside. "Gone like smoke," he muttered. At the far end of the bridge, the King's Road curved east, hugging slightly higher ground. The party followed single file through groves of twisted willow, whose branches hung like seaweed, brushing riders' faces with damp lace. Quile rode point. Harwin brought up the rear. Around midday the forest broke, and they came upon the corpse of a giant oak that had been felled across the road. Its trunk, thicker than a round tower's wall, cracked in 3 massive chunks. Fresh scoring scarred the wood where axes had hacked through living tree within the last day, and from one jagged limb hung bodies. 3 men, arms bound, hoods over faces. Their boots had been removed. Bruises purpled the soles of their feet, as though they had been beaten before death. Their throats were open to the vertebrae. Flies clouded. Jonella dismounted and tugged a hood away. The dead man's hair had been shorn to stubble, but above his brow faint lightning bolts remained, tattooed in yellow. Stormlanders. She replaced the hood, crossed herself with the spear shaft. Roderick's jaw clamped. Brutal work. Bolton flares, sure as sunrise. Lyanna examined the cuts. Precise, almost surgical. The executioner had known exactly how deep to slice, so the men bled slow. She counted to herself. 30 minutes, she whispered. Roderick stepped closer. What? 30 minutes, she repeated. That is how long a man can live with throat half severed before shock claims him. Whoever killed these men wished them to feel each heartbeat ebb. Harwin spat. Leech bastards. Lyanna flexed gloved fingers. If Bolton's right ahead, they may have lettered the king of my pursuit. We cannot gallop blindly into their snare. She scanned the oak, studying its fall path, its incision angles, and finally she found it. On the bark near the base, someone had carved a message with the tip of a short blade. It read only one word. Under, Al. Roderick saw it too. What does that mean? Lyanna dipped beneath the oak's bulk, crouching. Under the trunk, the road formed a natural little half-cave where the tree's branches arced upward. There she found another message, sprayed in dried berry juice across smooth wood. Lyanna. Hunted north and south. Moat Kalin. Uncertain. Change path. Confide reads. A crude sigil followed, a little crowned lizard lion. The House of Reed. Of Greywater Watch. Cranagman died. She rose. Heart hammering. How would they know my name? Roderick answered slowly. Because word travels on water quicker than on stone. Their spies must have seen us exit the tower. Bah! Lyanna wiped her mouth with the back of her glove. We change course at once. Leave the King's Road. Follow the Crannog trails southeast until we find a waystone of the reeds. Dorset swallowed. Off the main way? Those bogs swallow heavier mounts whole. Lyanna mounted her mare. Then ride lightly, or follow my tracks to safe ground whether you like or not. But I go. No one chose the latter. They swung eastward, guiding their horses onto a faint footpath of raised turf islands, stitched by timber planks, slick with moss. The bog breathed rank water vapor. Frogs croaked unseen. Here and there, arrow shafts jutted from pine boles, warnings or signposts. The party slowed to a crawl. An hour became 2, then 4. The sun hovered at meridian, but hats and hoods shielded no one from biting midges. Kyle switched to the second of their spare horses when his bay limped on a stone concealed beneath algae. Jonella's spear butt thudded every plank as she walked, now on foot to spare her mount. Harwin muttered a half-sung prayer to the seven, voice hoarse from swamp air. Lyanna drifted inward, stepping into a half-trance she once learned from Dornish sand mystics. Breathe in. Count to 8. Breathe out. Let the world narrow. Let fear fall away. Focus on the next plank, the next hoof fall. It steadied her. So she nearly missed the arrow until it hissed past her cheek and buried itself into Roderick's raised shield with a twang. Kyle shouted. 3 more shafts flew, one nicking Harwin's bracer, another skimming the rump of Jonella's horse, the last biting deep into Dorset's saddle. Chaos erupted. Horses reared, hooves thrashed water, riders ducked behind shield and bramble. Kyle loosed 3 arrows in return. But at what he could not see, the reeds closed over any hint of movement. Silence fell, broken only by frogs. Lyanna took a long breath. Cranogman, she said, voice level. Hold. A figure peeked above cattail heads 20 paces distant. A youth no taller than a boy of 10, wearing a frog-skin poncho and clutching a blowpipe to dark lips. Large owl eyes studied them. Then a voice behind Lyanna spoke. Lay down swords. The neck bites steel faster than flesh. Men? She turned to find a woman knee-deep in the bog, half hidden by a fallen log. The woman's hair curled in thick braids, woven with pale swamp flowers. In her left hand, she held a long, slender spear. On her shoulder perched a tiny lizard lion no larger than a kitten, tail wrapped round her neck like living jewelry. Lyanna nodded. You must be Reed. I am Mira Reed, the woman replied. Eldest daughter of Howland Reed, Lord of Greywater Watch. She raised her chin. Last I saw you, my lady, you lay dying in a tower of stone while my father bled his palm to bind you to the green. It is good to see you stand. Shock chilled Lyanna like sudden winter. Howland lives? Of course. Mira gestured. More shapes emerged. Slender men and women in leathers mottled with swamp dye. Bows half drawn. We watch all who cross the neck. Bolton and Lannister both hunt your shadow. We guide you safe, if you trust us. Roderick eased his horse's reins. Your father owes honor to Winterfell. If his daughter speaks truth, we'll follow. Menepermom. Lyanna swung down from her saddle, boots sinking an inch in muck. She walked toward Mira until the bog rose just above her ankles. Reed archers tensed at once, but Mira lifted a hand. They relaxed. Face to face, Lyanna studied the young woman. Mira's eyes, green as pondweed, held something of the ancient world in them, a depth beyond years. Your father saved my life, Lyanna said. I would see him again and thank him. He waits, Mira replied, but the ground moves as Greywater moves. We cannot delay. Come. We melt into fog before Bolton nets tighten. They followed Mira. Crannogmen slithered ahead, parting reeds, pointing to hidden tussocks. The party's horses balked at times, reeds tugged at legs, slime stank. Yet no man or mount perished. In late afternoon, they reached a low rise where dead oaks stood crooked like broken sails. Their Mira halted. "Dismount," she ordered. "Your beasts rest here under our care. The ground beyond sinks with one wrong step." She whistled. 3 barefooted Crannogmen appeared to lead the horses away. Lyanna stepped forward. "We walked the rest?" Mira nodded. 2 miles as heron flies. But time flows different on the Green Fork. Roderick grimaced. "Spare me riddles." Mira smiled. "Riddles spare you." They trod single file along invisible paths, guided by reed markers shaped like twisting runes only the watchers could read. The sun dipped behind fir-fringed ridges. Mosquitoes whined in webs of golden light. Twice they waded waist-deep through murky water as silent shapes slid beneath. Fish, perhaps, or drowned memory. Once they crossed a causeway of gray stones that hummed faintly underfoot, a music that set Lyanna's heart rattling in her ribs. At last the ground sloped upward. Vines replaced reeds, draping trunkless tree stumps like curtains. Lanterns fashioned from turtle shells glowed green along the path. Ahead shimmered movement. A fortress glimpsed through mirage, its timbers twisting, its windows flickering as though the very notion of walls were negotiable. Greywater Watch. The moving castle. They crested the final rise and entered a courtyard ringed by a wooden palisade that looked half-grown, half-built. Inside, men in patchwork armor sharpened spears, alongside women weaving nets from gray spider silk. Children practiced spear throwing at straw effigies. Lizard lions basked. At the far end of the yard under a willow roof, a man knelt by a small fire, his hand outstretched in greeting before his voice. "Lyanna," said Howland Reed. He looked older than the dream she recalled. Hair threaded with white, face lean but bright-eyed. Yet his smile cut through sorry years and doubt. Lyanna ran to him. He rose, arms wide, and they embraced. She felt herself small again, a maid who had once saved Howland from torment at Harrenhal, back when Liv's unwritten still shimmered ahead like dew on dawn grass. He held her shoulders. "I told you we would meet again, under crowns of frost." She touched his cheek. "You kept your vow and more. You brought me back from death." He bowed his head. "I only begged the old gods." They answered. Roderick stepped forward, voice thick. "Lord Reed, I would have words on matters urgent." "Ned Stark." "I know," Reed interrupted, voice soft but steady. "The wolves howl south. Lannister hunts the last true lord. But hope lives." He gestured to the inner hall. "Come, eat, warm, and learn what little the green dreams show us." Inside the hall, reed-woven walls glowed with lanterns. Steam rose from a cauldron of turtle stew, the savory smell filling bellies hollowed by fear. Reed women served wooden bowls. As they ate, Howland spoke. "A fortnight passed, ravens warned us. Joffrey Baratheon will stage a spectacle. Ned Stark will confess treason at Baelor's Sept and plead mercy for his kin. The crowd will cheer. Then the Queen means either to send him north to the Wall, if Lord Tywin counsels restraint, or to strike off his head, if her son commands. Tywin rides slow. The Queen listens to the lion in her belly. Her children's future is her future. My dreams blurred between 2 paths. On one, Ned Stark's blood stains the Sept steps. On the other, a rose of blue blooms amid sword points, turning bystanders to stone. Mansarak. Lyanna lowered her spoon. "Blue rose." Howland met her gaze. "Your symbol since Harrenhal." Roderick leaned forward. "If the Queen may yet choose exile over death, we must push the latter path. Force the mercy." Howland shook his head. "Mercy is not given, it is taken. To sway the Queen you must shift the pieces around her. The King, the High Septon, the Gold Cloaks, the small folk. A single rumor may spark riot or quell it. But time thins. Lyanna said, "We leave by dawn for Moat Cailin. From there the King's Road quickens." "You will not ride the King's Road," Howland interrupted gently. "Bolton hunts it, and Fraysbar the twins. I send you by water, down the Green Fork's hidden runs. Skiffs will bear you through mazes only Crannogmen recall. You will land amid the Blackwater Rush in 4 days if the river cherishes you. The rest is hoof and foot." "Nanam." Harwin blinked. 4 days? Impossible. Wooden paths drift faster than stone. Howland said. "Trust the river's pulse." Janella asked. "What of our horses?" "They travel separately, hidden on barter boats. You reunite with them near Sow's Horn." His face turned solemn. "But one thing more. The Queen will not fear you, Lyanna, unless you reveal the child. She thinks him a dead curiosity. She must learn he breathes." Lyanna's blood chilled. "You know where he is?" Howland's eyes flickered. "A hummingbird darts flower to flower. Catch him wrong and he dies, yet he exists, raised across the narrow sea under a different name. I cast nets of rumor to mask him from Red Priest and Spider alike, but word seeps. Sellswords whisper of a boy with black hair, violet eyes calling dragons in his sleep." He paused. "I will draw him west, to White Harbor, if gods allow. But until then, your brother is our key. Even caged, he is the living heart of northern loyalty. Keep him beating." Lyanna's spoon trembled. She set it down. "I will stand before the Iron Throne if I must, and speak his true name to all the realm. How the realm responds depends on more than truth. It depends on hunger, fear, and thunder." Howland gestured to the cauldron, its surface quivering. "Be water, Lyanna. Mold to the vessel, yet wear stone into sand." Night deepened. One by one the companions drifted to pallets laid with woven rush mats. Reed singers played bone flutes that sounded like wind through reeds, lulling restless minds. Lyanna alone remained awake, sitting beside Howland beneath the willow roof, where starlight filtered green. They spoke in low tones. Of Brandon and Benjen, of the promises Ned bore, of the dragons rumored east, of Robert's hollow crown, of prophecy twisting through bloodlines like smoke. When at last Lyanna lay down, sleep came heavy and dreamless. At first light they rose. Reed boatmen led them to shallow draft skiffs, shaped like long gray leaves, their hulls tarred with pine pitch. Each craft could bear 2 riders and a bundle of gear. Some carried an oarsman in the prow, paddle dipping silent. At Howland's signal reed gates parted, and a narrow channel opened. Water dark as obsidian glass. Frogs croaked farewell. Lyanna stood with Howland on the bank. "I will see you in King's Landing," he said, voice a croak from Knight's Council. "Or after. Remember the child." She squeezed his hand. "Guide him." She boarded the lead skiff with Roderick. The boat rocked once, found balance. Then oars dipped, and the craft slid forward. Reed walls closing behind like curtains at a play's end. Hours bled together. The river whispered secrets of old days, when children of the forest sang to beach-face gods, and the first men still feared the shape of winter. Sometimes Lyanna caught glimpses of motion in the trees. A pale antlered deer drinking, a dire wolf silhouette on a bluff. But the water bore her on too swiftly for certainty. She surrendered to its rhythm. On the second night, thunderclouds rolled overhead. Lightning spidered across violet sky. The boats took shelter beneath a limestone overhang where water dripped pure cold. Janella collected the drops in her helm. Harwin strung his bow extra taut against damp, sliding beeswax along string. Dorset vomited over the gunwale, muttering that river demons pulled at his gut. Lyanna ignored all, staring south where each lightning flash lit horizon like furnace doors cracking open. War fires burned somewhere out there. She could almost smell the smoke. On the third day, the water broadened. Current fiercer. Their oarsmen labored, faces streaming sweat, muscles knotted like corded rope. Mid-afternoon, Roderick pointed to a mound rising from swamp. Stone ramparts half collapsed, banners drooping. Moat Cailin. From this vantage, It looked a dying giant drowning. They drifted past unseen. Lyanna watched its broken towers recede, a sentinel of northern might left to flounder in mire. If Ned died, Winterfell might share that fate. On the fourth dawn, a briny scent touched the air. Salt and tar. Gulls cried. The boats glided around a bend, and the world opened on a broad river mouth, where sea tides churned gray-green swells into the blackwater rush. Tall reeds gave way to reeds broken, cut by fishermen. Haze veiled the distance, but faint towers pricked the southern sky. The walls of King's Landing, no longer days away but hours if the wind held. The oarsmen guided skiffs into a shadowed inlet beneath drooping mangroves. There they beached. Awaiting them were 6 dun-brown horses grazing under watch of 2 reed scouts. The animals stamped in greeting. Their tack bore no device. Their hooves freshly shod. Lyanna climbed slope to an overlooking bluff. From there she saw the Blackwater's wide expanse shimmering under late afternoon sun, with sail masts black against light. Pulse throbbed through her. The end game neared. They rode inland a mile to a crumbling stone barn rumored once to store royal levies of grain. Quail peeked inside. Rats fled. Yet straw piled high made swift bedding for tired mounts. A well offered water. Roderick set watch schedule. Jonella lit no fire. Cold feed tonight. They would ride under darkness, reaching the city gates near dawn's earliest watch. When guards blinked sleep from eyes, Lyanna sat alone upon a broken millstone behind the barn. In her hand she held 2 objects, Ned's blood-speckled half-letter and a single blue rose plucked from Howland Reed's garden that morning. Its petals trembled, as though wind breathed life into color. She stared until the rose blurred. A sound behind her. Sansa's face floated in imagination, pleading. Arya's scowl. Robb's determined smile. Bran's distant, grieving wisdom. Even Rickon's laughter, echoing from Winterfell's echoing halls. All children of Winterfell, in peril because of her, because she had not died properly. She closed fist around the rose. A thorn pricked skin. A drop of blood welled. She let it fall onto stone, tiny but bright. For a moment, she imagined the drop, spreading across all the ground between here and the Red Keep. A scar of red that would guide her to the place where the blow must fall. Night came fast. Clouds covered the moon, cloaking the barn in deep shadow. One by one her companions drifted into uneasy dozes, their bodies curled against saddlebags. Only Lyanna remained wakeful, listening to the slow stamp of her mare, the creak of tack. Each minute lengthened to an hour. She measured the beating of her heart against the hush. Hold fast, hold fast. A whisper of leather on straw made her turn. Roderick stood near, silhouetted, beard glinting in faint starlight. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Sleep is a ladder back to dreams I'd climb no farther." He grunted. "Tomorrow we ride through crowded gates. Lannister spies will watch every face." "How will you enter unseen?" "I won't." She stroked Rickard's sword hilt. "They need to see me." Roderick sighed. "I thought as much." He dug into his cloak and produced a small bundle wrapped in linen. "Then you may need this." He set the bundle on the millstone and stepped back. Lyanna unwrapped it. Inside lay a hairnet of fine silver, delicate as gossamer, strung with tiny black gems. She lifted it. The stones caught starlight and sparkled like dark water under torchlight. "Shadow gems," Roderick said. "My sister's heirloom. She died birthing twins the same year you were taken south. I've kept it hidden. The jewels absorb light. At dusk they swallow faces. Wear it and the crowd sees only a blur until you pull it free." Lyanna traced the cool gems. "You risk much. Winterfell risks all." He laid a hand on her shoulder. "We may not live past tomorrow, but we can mark the realm forever." She bowed her head. "Thank you." Roderick squeezed once, then left her alone. Lyanna stared after him. In her palm the shadow gems pulsed like tiny hearts. She raised them to her head, settled the net over hair, tugged cloak hood to hide the gems' faint gleam. A strange calm settled over her. She felt distant from her own flesh, as though she already marched in legend's pages. her steps written before birth. Quiet fell. Crickets chirped beyond rotting boards. Somewhere far off, a wolf howled, high and lonely. Dawn's first gray smear showed on eastern clouds when they saddled. No one spoke. Kyle led, Janella second with spear wrapped in canvas. Lyanna third, Roderick behind her, Harwin next balancing bow, Dorset last riding double with pate to spare the lame horse. They filed west to the river road, then south along the Blackwater's east bank, until lights of the city flickered ahead like 1,000 dying stars. The eastern gate they chose was the Mud Gate, lesser traveled at sunrise. Dockhands still snored on tavern floors. Fishermen hauled nets along nearby wharfs. When the riders approached, the 2 gold cloaks at the portcullis roused, leaning spears across archway. "Halt," barked one guy. "Name and business." Kyle raised a gloved hand. "Merchants from Duskendale come to market silver dye cloth." He tossed a small pouch that clinked where it landed. The guard kicked it to inspect the coins, grunted approval, gestured them through. Lyanna kept head bowed, hood low. Yet when she passed, she felt the guard's eyes linger. The hairnet's gems absorbed torch glow, blurring her features. Still, her mind raced with images. A single guard stepping forward, plucking the hood back. The alarm cry, "Traitor wolf!" But no cry came. The horses clopped onto cobblestones, hooves echoing as tall leaning warehouses closed over them. Inside the city, the air reeked of fish offal, dung, and wood smoke. Dawn-tinted rooftops, rose gold. From distant heights of the Red Keep, horns brayed a thin, yearning note. The royal septi bells followed. 3 quick tolls. Roderick tensed. "The hour of confession," he muttered. Lyanna's stomach knotted. She prodded her horse to faster walk. But markets already stirred. Throngs clogged alleys, carts squeaked. Everywhere she looked, she saw faces. Gaunt, angry, uncertain. Rumors of war and hunger brewed. A spark could flare powder. They worked through side streets until the sept of Baylor spires speared horizon. The plaza before the sept spread like a marble field, already ringed by gold cloaks drafting crowds into ordered lanes. On the sept steps, a scaffold of dark wood jutted, flanked by poles bearing torch stubs. Ropes draped. A headsman's block gleamed wet where dew collected. Sparrows gathered early, brown robes fluttering. Septas herded them behind rope lines. Small folk pressed behind, whispering. "The hand confesses today," sounded again and again. "They'll send him to serve on the wall." Others hissed, "No, the boy king wants blood." Lyanna's party dismounted in an alley 1 street off the plaza. Kyle remained to guard horses. Janella unslung her spear. Roderick kept the dark greatsword wrapped under his cloak. Harwin stringed his bow, hiding arrows under rolled cloth. Dorset tucked throwing daggers into boot. Pate held the carved direwolf like a charm. They split, filtering into the crowd from different angles. Lyanna felt the throng's pulse. Fear, curiosity, hate, and rode it forward. She wormed to second row where a stone balustrade hemmed the plaza. Overheads, she saw the sept doors still shut. Gold cloaks lined the scaffold, helms gold-plated, crimson cloaks stiff with starch. A hush pregnant with terror fell when the great bronze doors groaned. First strode the high septon, powdered, ringed by acolytes. Behind him a retinue of lords and councillors took positions. Grand Maester Pycelle leaning on staff. Lord Baelish smirking. Varys gliding ghost quiet. Sir Meryn Trant with white cloak. And behind, Queen Cersei in midnight gown, her blonde hair a storm-tossed mane. Prince Joffrey trailed, wearing crown heavy for his small skull, his lips twisted with something like delight. At his side walked Sansa Stark, pale as first snow, cheeks hollow but eyes shining with desperate hope. Lyanna gripped balustrade until knuckles ached. Sansa alive. Too. Arya unseen. Where was Ned? The sept doors opened again. 2 gold cloaks hauled Eddard Stark onto the steps. He limped, beard ragged, face gaunt, but eyes clear. The crowd gasped. Ned blinked into sunlight, then looked over the plaza, searching perhaps for one of his children, perhaps for a sister long dead. He did not see Lyanna. On the scaffold, High Septon raised arms. "Good people of King's Landing." His voice droned, but Lyanna heard only her heartbeat in ears. Roderick's signal flashed across crowd, him adjusting shoulder cloak. Harwin opposite touched arrow knock. Jonella near gates loosened spear. Lyanna breathed deep. With slow, deliberate motion, she reached beneath cloak and unpinned the silver hairnet. The shadow gems gleamed once before she lifted the net high and let it fall away. Hair spilled black as raven wings. She flung back hood. Sunlight caught her face full. She stepped onto balustrade, drawing Rickard Stark's greatsword from beneath cloak. The dark blade sang a low hum that cut through Septon's sermon. "Eddard Stark," she cried, voice ringing across marble. "Brother!" The crowd turned. Even bells seemed to hush mid-toll. On the scaffold Ned froze, eyes widening. "Lyanna," he whispered, voice lost to distance but clear upon his lips. Cersei's face drained of color. Joffrey's jaw dropped. Sansa swayed, gripping rail. "I live," Lyanna shouted, stepping along the balustrade like a tightrope walker. "You swore to protect our blood, Ned. I come to claim your oath." Gold cloaks surged forward. Harwin's bow twanged. An arrow thunked into shield rim, staggering first soldier. Jonella's spear arced, striking a captain's helm with flat blade. Chaos rippled. Lyanna leapt from balustrade to plaza floor, blade raised. "Small folk," she cried. "They lied to you. Here stands your true queen's sister. Stolen. Silenced. Will you watch them spill Stark blood again?" "Nine." Murmurs erupted. Some small folk swayed toward her. Others shouted treason. She strode through them, the dark sword parting the sea of bodies. Gold cloaks hesitated, uncertain how to tackle a legend resurrected. On ramp to scaffold, Sir Meryn Trant advanced, blade naked. Roderick intercepted, white whiskers bristling. Steel rang. Roderick's strength met Meryn's graceless brutality. Jonella vaulted over cart, spear slashing. Harwin loosed arrows, cutting down two guards that threatened Sansa. Dorset's daggers flashed silver arcs. Lyanna reached bottom of steps. Ned stared, tears making muddy tracks on cheeks. "You are dead," he muttered. "So they told us both." She pressed the greatsword's pommel into his palm. "Hold fast again." He wrapped fingers round the hilt. Strength seemed to flow from blade into bone. His shoulders straightened. High Septon shrieked. Cersei shouted orders. Joffrey screamed, "Kill them! Kill them all!" Gold cloaks closed, a wall of spears. But the small folk surged too, anger pricked by betrayal tales. A baker's lad hurled stale loaf at Joffrey. Others followed with stones. Riot bloomed. Varys disappeared like mist. Littlefinger backed toward stairs. The High Septon scuttled inside. Cersei braced between Ned and Joffrey. Guards seize him. But Ned raised the Stark greatsword high, its dark blade drinking morning sun, and the crowd roared. Not at Ned. At the image? Lyanna Stark, alive on Sept steps beside brother wronged, brandishing ancestral steel. Myth made flesh. Cersei's command died in throat as she beheld the impossible. A memory of Robert sobbing over a bloody bier flashed behind her eyes. She faltered. Joffrey, however, spat rage. "Shoot them, crossbows." From rampart above, crossbowmen aligned. Lyanna saw quarrels notch. Roderick bellowed, "Shields up!" But there were none. Then from northern edge of plaza, a horn sounded. Deep, warlike. Stormland infantry poured in. The yellow shield column Lyanna had seen. They battered through gold cloaks, raising lightning banners scoured near white. Their war drums thundered. Small folk parted. The crossbowmen swiveling above lost nerve. Bolts flew wild. One struck Cersei's arm, she screamed. The Stormland captain strode forward, helm crested with stag antler. He knelt before Ned. "For Robert's sake we save his friend." He looked at Lyanna. "And for the Rose Knight who tamed a stag." Lyanna climbed the scaffold, seized Ned's chained wrist, and slashed the manacles. Iron fell. "Eddard Stark, you are free." Sansa rushed, sobbing, into Ned's arms. Guards hesitated, outnumbered, surrounded by a crowd grown hostile. Jonella and Harwin formed wedge around the Starks. Roderick limped, wounded but proud. Dorset helped Pate climb. Lyanna raised her voice. "We march north." A roar answered. Amid chaos, Cersei clutched Joffrey, dragging him toward the sept doors, Maester Pycelle trailing. Behind them, a stone flung by Riot smashed high window, showering glass. Across plaza, Arya Stark shimmied from drainpipe onto a fishmonger's awning, narrow face alight with fierce relief. She slipped into surging tide of small folk and vanished. Gold cloaks broke ranks, some discarding helms to melt into alleys. The Stormland column ushered Ned and companions across plaza, back toward Mud Gate where horses waited. Bells hammered overhead, alarm and hymn entwined. As Lyanna led them out, torch smoke dimming morning sun, she thought of the child across the sea, of dragons stirring of winter still to come. Yet for this heartbeat, this fragile dawn, the promise held, Stark blood endured. She sheathed Rickard Stark's sword. Its dark steel whispered as it slid home, an ancient lullaby, old as the first winter, promising yet more chapters before the song was sung. Moonlight washed the wide black water reach in molten silver as the ragged column threaded out through the shattered mud gate. Tarcake pillars and half-burned derricks loomed beside the quay like the ribs of some whale beast, every spar jutting charred toward a night sky crackling with distant screams. Behind them, King's Landing roared and heaved, bells clanged in wild counterpoint, fires jumped from roof to roof where riot torches had found dry summer thatch, and the high, thin shriek of Queen Cersei's rage rode every gust. Yet beyond the walls the air tasted of salt and freedom, and each stamp of hoof upon the hardpack felt like the first true heartbeat in a body long given for dead. No one set formal order to the flight. Necessity drew its own shape. Ned rode at center. Sansa balanced pillion behind him on a borrowed gelding too small for a man of his height. Lyanna flanked him on her dun mare, Rickard's black greatsword resting naked across her lap. Harwin circled wide with bow half drawn, eyes scanning every dockhouse roof. Jonella kept spear ready at Ned's offside. Behind her, Dorset and Pate jostled a mule cart they had commandeered, filled now with casks of river water, salted meat, and a dozen linen-wrapped bundles pilfered from the royal larder in the confusion. Roderick Castle sat cockeyed in his saddle and said nothing. But the bandage on his arm bled fresh each time his mount jolted. The Stormlander captain, antler-crested helm dark in moonglow, rode rear guard with 40 yellow shield men, their drum now silence wrapped in mourning for those lost at the Sept steps. Across the bay, arrowfire traced ember arcs up from the Blackwater's southern wharfs. The gold cloaks had manned river towers and hurled crescent darts in vain hope of lighting fleeing ships. 2 galleys already listed ablaze mid-harbor, reflections flickering across choppy dark. Sails hoisted by panicked captains cracked like whips in the offshore breeze. Lyanna judged their position, breathing ragged. "River road east," she ordered the captain. "Lose ourselves in the dunes until dawn, then cut north to Sow's Horn." The captain dipped his helm wordlessly. His men spurred forward, forming cursory vanguard. Ned's horse shied at a corpse sprawled face down in the dust. Gold cloak, throat savaged, perhaps by the crowd, or by Harwin's arrow. Sansa buried her face against her father's cloak to blot the sight. Ned reached back, squeezing her forearm. He caught Lyanna's gaze. "We cannot outrun the crown forever," he murmured, voice rasped by days of dungeon damp. "We run only far enough to choose the ground of next battle," she answered. Sparrows of ash drifted on the wind. The city behind them burned in pockets, where bakeries and carpenters' yards had ignited like tinder. Farther east torchlines flickered as Lannister foot swarmed down the King's Road after them. But for the moment, distance and chaos smothered pursuit. They veered onto a goat track skirting the salt marsh flats. Moonlight slicked mud flats into mirrors, every hoofprint filled with black water. Jonella's spear point tapped the rhythm of the canter. 5 heartbeats, 6 out. Beside her, Dorset wrestled the mule cart over a washed-out culvert. From the reeds came the croak of bullfrogs. From an unseen inlet, the lonely call of a night raven. Lyanna stole a glance at Ned. Fever had yellowed his skin where lantern fire showed, yet resolve braced his spine. Every mile marked another stitch in his soul's torn fabric. She wondered what words churned behind his silence. Gratitude laced with horror, perhaps. Her own mind whirled. Memories of stone steps stained red, of Cersei's stunned fury, of Joffrey's child, face twisted by hate. She could still feel the plank flex beneath her boots as she stood on the sept scaffold, hear the gasp that surged like a breaking wave when the crowd recognized her. In that moment, something old and wild had risen inside. A she-wolf too long chained. Now fleeing under broken moon, she feared only that the wolf would taste blood and refuse any leash. 2 hours passed. The city's glow dwindled to smudge on horizon. They reached a narrow spit where sandy soil mixed with sedge grass. Here the river road bent inland, away from tide-flat glare. They halted beneath a cluster of gnarled willow, branches draped like tattered sails. No fires, only a shuttered lantern buried behind cart canvas for a sliver of light. The Stormlander captain moved among men, posting pickets. Harwin climbed a bark-bear trunk for overwatch. Jonella and Pate tended Roderick's wound, slicing fresh linen into strips. The old knight winced but bore it. Lyanna dismounted and crouched by Ned near the cart tailgate. Sansa, eyes rimmed red, dozed upright where she sat, cheek against saddle leather. Lyanna touched Ned's arm. "We cannot linger more than an hour. Your fever needs maester's care." "There is no maester on these flats," Ned grunted. "I'll last." She unfurled reed-woven satchel Howland had pressed into her hand on departure. Deep inside she found vials stoppered with beeswax, each bearing chalk sigils. She recognized the rune for fever wards, for bone knit, for sleep dreamless. "Crannog remedies," she said, selecting one. "Drink." Oh, he sniffed, grimaced. "Smells of pond scum. Tastes worse." She held it to his lips. He drank, shuddered. Clouds glided across moon, leaving them in darkness for heartbeats. Ned's gaze turned searching. "Lyanna," he began, voice low. "The child." "Lives," she answered, steady. Howland shielded him east. "The world will know soon, but not yet. Your safety comes first." He nodded, acceptance tinged with something like dread. "And the realm? Torn by claim and counterclaim. Robert dead, the Lannisters grasping, Stannis somewhere raising banners, Renly courting reachlords. Now the North rides to war, and Stormlanders break loyalty to crown. All truths we cannot mend tonight," she said. "First we reach the neck, then the mending begins." Steps scuffed sand behind them. The Stormlander captain approached, helm tucked under arm. Sweat streaked grime across his brow, but his eyes burned bright. "Walls already boil with Lannister men," he informed. "My outriders spied red cloaks pouring through King's Gate. Give them till dawn and they'll sweep east." Lyanna sheathed greatsword. "Dawn will find us gone." He scanned their weary faces. "Meet us first light by the Willow Fork Causeway. We'll cut north together, use the disused smuggler's ferry at Bitterbridge. After that my Stormborn lads peel off home. Your road carries you beyond my oath." Ned extended hand. The captain hesitated, then clasped wrists. "Robert would thank you," Ned said. "Robert's dead," the man replied, "but his shadow guides my steps. Stark and Storm once joined to end a dragon. We can end a lion too." He sketched rough salute and melted into gloom. Lyanna turned to Sansa, stirring awake. She stroked the girl's hair. "Sleep in the wagon for this hour. When the moon sets, we ride." "No, nurse." Sansa, a child no more. Cheeks hollowed by palace dread. Nodded, climbing onto the straw-laden bed. She folded knees to chest, hugging thin cloak. Lyanna lingered until the girl's breaths deepened, then walked to Willow Edge. Harwin perched above, silhouette against starlight. "Road clear," she called softly. "Clear enough," he answered. "But I smell rain on the wind. And pursuit." "So do I." She looked across dark flats. The river glimmered faint, a serpent under stars. Somewhere beyond lay the Frey-held twins, bolts of crossroad power. Beyond, the north and Winterfell's hearth. Between them stretched more foes than friends. A flicker, memory of Rhaegar's rubies sinking in Trident. She wondered if rubies still lay on that river bed, gathering silt, or if fishermen had long since pried each red stone out of mud and sold them to southern ladies, who wore dragon blood round their pale throats unaware. History scattered treasure, crows picked it clean. Only bones remained. And sometimes, if bones refused to lie, they became swords again. She returned to camp and roused Jonella. Gather gear. We leave now. Rain may mask our tracks. Nan said. They broke hush camp within minutes. Pate coaxed mule to harness, lashing casks tight. Roderick climbed astride with help. The column rolled forward under shrinking moon. A fine prickle hit Lyanna's cheeks. First drops. They had gone half a league when Harwin's warning whistle pierced fog. Everyone froze beneath crooked crabapple tree. From west came hoofbeats. Many pounding steady. Lyanna tilted head, counting cadence. Cavalry. Light. Perhaps 60. A trumpet blared faint. Lannister outriders. The Stormlander scouts slipped from shadow. Captain whispered. They cut across flats north of road, parallel. They'll outflank slow beasts. Lyanna scanned terrain. Soupy mud, dead reeds. Carts bog here, she said. We must bear east, deeper into marsh. They cannot gallop water. Roderick hissed pain but nodded. Harwin took lead, arrow glowing pale where moonlight slipped past clouds. He guided them off-road onto a thread of higher ground, a natural levee crusted with salt. Water lapped on both sides. Rain thickened, soft sheets that turned lantern glare to hazy dome. Behind, the hoofbeats shifted, now muffled by distance but still tracking. Lyanna pictured red-plumed helms, lamplight glinting off gilded scales. She urged her dun faster. The levee narrowed, water creeping. Mules balked once, but Dorset cracked, whip coaxing. Sudden crack of lightning washed world white, and in that flash she saw silhouettes 300 paces back. Riders lining crest, pennon snapping, yellow lion on crimson. Then dark again, thunder rolling like drum. Harwin loosed arrow. Impossible shot in dark. But next lightning revealed one lion knight tumbling from saddle. Harwin whooped once, knocked again. The column pressed forward, water now knee-deep on horses. Sansa clung to Ned, eyes squeezed. Rain became deluge. The levee ended at ragged stand of black alder. Harwin forced through, branches whipping, and emerged onto stale pond ringed by hummocks. He spurred horse into waist-deep water. The rest followed, splashes drowned by storm roar. Lyanna's mare faltered, bottom dropped, horse swimming. She tightened knees, kept blade high. Jonella manhandled spearbutt, using it like punting pole. Behind, Lannister cavalry reached Alder's stand. Screams cut night as first horses plunged into bog, legs sucked. Weighty destriers floundered, riders cursed. Some reined back, others pressed and vanished beneath beef-red water when peat crust cracked. Even in chaos, red cloaks fired crossbows. Bolts hissed, but distance and rain turned them impotent. Lyanna's group slogged to far shore, chests heaving. Mud coated horses to withers. Rain hammered. By dawn, pursuit sounds had dimmed to forlorn shouts. Then silence. They pressed on until pale smear of light rose behind rag-end clouds. At Willowfork Causeway, Stormlanders met them, half their number limping but alive. They carried 2 severed lion helms on spear points in grim trophy. The captain saluted. "Your bog kills better than my blade." They pushed north. Rain eased, leaving gray hush. Villages they passed sat shuttered. Folk closed doors at sight of armed men. Dust of rumor preceded them. By midday a tinker hailed that Queen Cersei had posted bounties. 10,000 dragons for the return of Eddard Stark and the wolf witch who stole him. Another peddler claimed Joffrey promised knighthood for any man who delivered Lyanna Stark's head. Lyanna listened, expression unreadable. Afternoon found them on bluff, overlooking the Bitterbridge ferry site. Rotted pier, shack half-caved, flat-bottom barge abandoned. Stormlanders lashed planks, patched holes with pitch. Through dusk they ferried horses, carts, and men, 6 at a time, across deep branch of Mandart. By night, both banks, huddled round, driftwood fires. The Stormlander captain approached. "My oath fulfilled," he said. "Past this, I ride for storms and to gather cousins. If war comes full, we strike Lion's flank." Ned clasped his forearm. "You have my thanks. Winterfell will remember." Lyanna stepped forward, pulled a ring from pouch. Silver wolf twisted round a single sapphire eye. "Token for your lord. Proof the North rides with those who kept Robert's memory true." The captain accepted, fist closing. "Storm and snow," he said in parting. "Let lions choke between them." He mounted. His men followed south into night. Lyanna's column turned northeast under waning half-moon. Hills rolled, dry now, dotted with stone sheep pens. Autumn winds sharpened. They avoided market towns, skirting field edges. Twice cries rose behind barns where Jonella's spear silenced over-curious sellswords. Quail rejoined them with extra arrows pilfered from a hunter's lodge. Roderick's wound festered until fever racked him. Pate and Harwin brewed willow bark tea, but red streaks climbed his arm. Ned, still weak, insisted on changing bandage. His fingers, though trembling, worked gentle and sure. 6 nights beyond Ferry, they reached the Blueburns Ford. Dawn light revealed smoke pillars west. Frey camps, thousands strong, Gadigua. Scouts reported Walder Frey had called banners, hedging bets whether to support Crown or North. Lyanna chose eastern bank track instead, hugging wilderness. Food dwindled. Sansa's cheeks sank hollow, eyes luminous as ice pools. Yet she rode without complaint, gripping reins herself now. Sometimes Lyanna glimpsed steel inside the girl, birthright of wolves. On 12th day from escape they crossed into the neck. Pine scent thickened. Trails narrowed. Reed outriders greeted them at dusk with ghost-skin drums, guiding through secret causeways. Ned's fever broke at last. Sweat bathed him, and at sunrise he rode beside Lyanna, posture straight once more. They paused on ridge overlooking miles of hazy fen. Winterfell's long-remembered breeze kissed their faces. Ned spoke first, voice quiet. "I watched moon over Baelor's torches and thought life ended. Instead, I found my sister." He turned. "Do you resent I left you, dead, all these years?" She shook head. "You saved my son. That outweighs any grief. But Robert's war forged chains heavy even for you. Now we break them." They rode to Greywater Watch, shifting bounds. Howland met them on floating walkway, tears bright. Sansa hesitated, then curtsied. Howland laughed softly and bowed deeper. Reed healers tended Roderick. Leech and herb drew corruption. Color returned. 3 days they rested. In moss-scented hall, they held council. Howland, Ned, Lyanna, Roderick, Harwin, Jonella. Reed Maester. Spread parchment map. Stones marking armies. Lannister red cubes massed along Trident. Frey gray wavers. Bolton pink flanks inching south. From north, Robb's direwolf sigil advanced fast toward Moat Cailin. 50,000 Northmen driving like storm. Riverlords rallied under Tully Trout. Baratheon brothers positioned Worley in south and west. Ned traced line. Robb will smash Moat Cailin's ruins but may stall at Twins. Lord Walder will demand price. Price we now can pay, Lyanna said. A living Stark father, the lost lady of Winterfell. Bring those before the Twins and the old spider parts his gates, or stands revealed traitor to realm. Howland added, I sent word by Raven to Robb, and to Lady Catelyn who rides swift from Riverlands. They know you breathe. Ned closed eyes, relief a physical sag. I would see Cat again before swords ring. Lyanna looked south. Then we ride at first dawn. Us 5 swift, no baggage. Reach Robb across Marsh Road in 4 days. Present ourselves to Walder Frey and call banners whole. Harwin grinned. Lions will feel the wolf's full throat. Night before departure, Lyanna climbed Greywater's highest willow tower. Stars wreathing overhead reminded her of Harrenhal's night of song. Comets blazing violet. She felt presence approach, turned to see Ned. He studied her face in moonlight. "You mean to reveal the boy, do you not?" "When time strikes loudest," she said. "But every truth wields edge. Many will call him dragon seed, threat. Robb's men bled for his claim as king in North. Can they bend knee to child Rhaegar?" Ned sighed. "Blood runs deep, but honor deeper. If the boy lives, his line claims Targaryen right, yet Robert's heirs sit throne." He shook head. "What do you intend?" "First secure the North," she said. "Then weigh the realm's ache. Dragons stir in east. Rumors say Daenerys rides brood. Should that fire cross sea, we may need ice to temper flame. Our son may prove forged for that steel if he wishes. If not, he remains simply Jon, free. Men no way him tor." Ned's breath caught. "Jon," he repeated, awed. "You named him." Howland did, after my plea. Sean's short, plain, neither dragon nor wolf in tongue, a cloak of simplicity. He stepped forward, laid hand on hers. "Thank you." She smiled. Pale mist rose between tree limbs, swirling like ghosts. Sister and brother stood until dawn's silvered horizon. Ride to twins tested every sinew. Rain hammered marsh plankways first day. Second day sun scorched, turning bog vapors into choking steam. Snake root vines snagged horse fetlocks. Once a mire lurker lunged, dragging mule down before Harwin's arrow pinned its eye. At dusk third day they smelled campfires, heard trumpet of Northmen drilling. As they crested last ridge, banners beyond rocked red sunset gold. Deery wolves, mermen, branches for tall hearts, sunburst for Karstarks. Roar of thousands chanting Rob's name rolled like seas against tower walls of the twins. Janella whistled low. North remembers. Gray-clad outriders hailed them, spears raised. When Lyanna bared face and Ned lifted hand, shock rippled. Scouts galloped to riverbanks shouting. By the time the small party reached Frey Causeway, lines of mail-clad veterans parted, murmuring. Some dropped to one knee, heads bowed. Others made sign of Daewolf over hearts. Walder Frey's gates opened not at price but in silence. Ned and Lyanna crossed single drawbridge to thunderous echo of hoofs on old timber. Behind, Harwin and Janella flanked, Roderick riding no pale. Pate remained among supply train with mule. Great hall of the twins smelled of stale beer and wet fleece. Old Walder snarled from dais, flanked by brood of sons. Yet his eyes darted to Lyanna, as though seeing wraith, color drained. Before he spoke, younger Frey, Jared, announced arrival of King in the North Robb Stark, and Lady Catelyn, summoned by trumpet. Mother and son strode in. Lyanna's chest tightened. Robb, taller than Ned now, auburn hair wind-tossed, face hard, but eyes brimmed when he beheld father alive. He rushed forward. Ned dismounted in one stumbling step, and they embraced. Hall erupted cheers. Catelyn reached, tears streaming, kissed Ned then Lyanna, calling her sister though they had never met. Even Walder Frey looked about to gag. Robb knelt before Lyanna after hugging sister. "My lady, they said you died." "I refused," she answered, lifting him. "As do you, Wolf King." Night feast convened. Meager but hearty. Barley bread, river pike, barrels of Frey ale. Robb's bannerman pressed, eager for word. Rumor flew swift. Queen's city in flames. King Joffrey besieged by own folk. Traitor Lyon's hunting lost hand. When Lyanna spoke of Lannister outriders drowned in Neckbog, cheers rattled rafters. When Ned declared intention to lead northern host home, then south again if crown threatened, roars shook stone. In hush after, old Walder croaked, "Gate toll forgiven, but you owe a wedding yet." Faces tensed, memory of old pact. Catelyn stiffened. Lyanna rose, approached dais. "Lord Walder Frey, you demanded hostage bride for river crossing. Here stands the returned Lady of Winterfell, unwed, once promised to King Robert but kept unconsummated. She offers alliance now, no union of flesh, but vow of guardianship. One of your granddaughters to serve as her ward, raised at Winterfell until of marrying age. In return, you open gates free and pledge trains across crossing for this war. Hall murmured. Walder blinked rheumy eyes. A ward no dowry. Word, fosterage, and when grown, choice to wed a stark bannerman of her liking, lands and sept guaranteed, Lyanna added. Walder licked lips. The offer birthed tale of honor he could boast. Daughter ties to wolves without losing fertile brood. He nodded once, slow. Dorna, he called. A plain child of 12 stepped forward, eyes wide. Lyanna knelt to eye level, spoke gentle. Are you willing? The girl gulped, nodded quick. Lyanna clasped her hand. Hall broke into applause. Pack sealed, causeway lowered. At dawn, Robb's army crossed, drums beating. Ned rode at head with Robb. Lyanna beside them, great sword slung. Banner of dancing blue rose, newly sown on white field, flapping beneath direwall. Frey horns blew farewell, lines thrummed with pride. Northmen marched 2 days to Moat Cailin ruins, found Bolton garrison surrendering before numbers, banners reversed. Yet among captured letters was Raven scroll, showing Roose Bolton had declared for Starks, but his bastard Ramsay had seized Winterfell in their absence, claiming wardship. News struck Robb like maul. Many men roared vengeance. Lyanna listened coldly. We retake home first, she said. Ned agreed. Robb's council set route. Army split, main host west trail to lift siege of Seaguard, while lighter vanguard under Ned, Lyanna, Roderick, and Greatjon swept east to Dreadfort, crush Bastard, then south to Winterfell. Harwin volunteered to ride with fast column. Jonella too. Caitlin remained with Robb, guiding river strategy. Before parting, Ned took Cat aside. They spoke long shadows clasped. Night before march north, Lyanna walked ramparts. Sansa joined, cloak hooded. I thought of King's Landing, Sansa whispered. When you stepped onto balustrade, time shattered. I saw a hero out of tales, but I also saw risk. You frightened me, Aunt. Lyanna smiled faint. Heroes frighten themselves, child. I am woman making choice after choice. If choice makes legend, so be it. She cupped Sansa's chin. You changed too, not child now. When we reach Winterfell, you help Bran rule while men war. Wolf blood steeled. Sansa straightened. I will, Aunt. Far away, horns echoed. Dawn upcoming. Army stirred. Lyanna stared south over mists. In that haze she pictured dragons across sea, a boy with her eyes climbing ship rail, unaware of storm gathering under his name. She did not know whether joy or doom awaited, only that story spun onward, relentless. Morning broke. Gray banners unfurled, drums rolled. Ned raised Winterfell's standard high. Lyanna slipped helm over dark hair, shadow gems sewn into steel rim, leaving face bared. She mounted. Hooves struck earth as vanguard wheeled north. Wind sharpened with cold promise. Whisper, that winter, long heralded, finally bared its teeth. Lyanna tasted snow in distance, felt weight of sword hilt press against thigh. She whispered, hold fast, and urged her mare into trot. The song of wolves rose behind, and the march to reclaim home began.